All right, you guys ready for this? Yeah. Okay. We are doing it for the internets as well, so we're going to do an official start in just a second here. All right, welcome to new products at Flyin Miata Summer Camp. I am Brandon. I'm kind of the product development guy around here. So we're going to go through all of the new shiny stuff and some stuff that maybe you can't buy quite yet, but in the future, soon. So, as always, if you guys have questions about the product I'm talking about, raise your hand. I can answer questions. We can go through stuff. If you have general questions, I'm happy to do that, but let's do that at the end so we kind of don't interrupt the flow through the new products, if that makes sense. And we have the internet joining us as well, so we'll look for comments from the internet as well. So we will jump right in. We kind of have a pile of things. So, and some of this we've already done individual Facebook Lives and YouTube videos and such on, so a little bit of rehash, but also some new stuff. So. Starting off are the reroutes. So we've been selling our reroute kit for a long time. It is, I think, an excellent kit, takes into account turbo cooling and one piece and all that fun stuff. So we've got some additions to it now. So for those of you, and I've talked to a few of you this weekend that have upright radiators, you should really get our crossflow radiator. But if you don't want to, then here is an adapter hose. So the routing for the reroute with an upright radiator is pretty goofy because it tucks around real tight. This guy does that for you, maintains flow, easy install. Obviously, you can see it's short, so it's meant to add in addition to the hose that you already have. Comes with coupler, hose clamps, constant torque, good hose clamps, all that fun stuff. So also with the reroutes, we have hose brackets here. So the reroute hose is kind of long, floppy, little goofy where it goes along the intake manifold there. So these brackets make it so that the radiator hose is held securely in place and doesn't flop around as much and doesn't run into things it's not supposed to run into. So these are included with the kit. There's an NA version, which is the long one. This just goes in place of or on top of where the intake manifold brace bolts onto your intake manifold. You can use it with or without that. Includes hardware and all that fun stuff. So NA one, the NB one. Now these are both 3D printed on our Markforged printers out of Onyx, which is a carbon fiber infused nylon. It's very good stuff as a really short version. I can tell you all sorts of other things about it if you are interested. But one of the kind of fun things about this is that the 3D printer allows us to do a really weird shape that would be expensive to machine. So it's got a twist in one direction and then a twist in another direction so that we aim the hose just perfectly towards that radiator inlet. So more on the cooling stuff. I've talked to a number of you about our brushless fan setup, and I am a giant nerd for it. It works extremely well. We've got the two different setups. So one of the things is it works very well with air conditioning, but if you don't have anything extra, it's just full speed all the time. And those fans pull so much air that that's just not necessary. Well, this little kit, very simple. It's just a potentiometer with a bracket and a knob and some wiring and such, allows you to adjust the speed of the fan when triggered by the air conditioning. This just adjusts the amount of voltage that goes down that wire. The voltage dictates the fan speed. There you go. Easy peasy. So, for those of you with turbo kits, we now have gold for our turbo kits. So this is from our friends at DEI. It is more rigid when it's attached to an aluminum airbox, I promise. So this is a reflective gold covering that reflects, oh, I've got it upside down. Anyway, that reflects heat back out, keeps the air filter cold. Colder air is quicker spool, is more power, is lower engine temps. You know, it's good all the way around. So, okay, there, that is right, I promise. So we've got these for the NA and the NB kits. Simple stick-on CNC cuts, perfect shape. You just have to put it on. We do also have CNC cut hush kits for the NA and NB turbo kits. So it's obviously a different material, but it's CNC cut. Goes right on the backside of the airbox to kind of muffle the intake noise a little bit and quiet it down a little bit. It's not going to make it silent, but it'll take a little bit of the edge off. So for the NBs, we have our NB steering rack bushing upgrade kit. So the steering rack is now attached to the subframe with rubber bushings. So that allows the rack to move just a little bit and independently of the subframe, which takes away just a little bit of that steering accuracy. It's just a little bit more squish in there. It's kind of the same idea behind the poly bushings, the stiffer rubber bushings, that kind of thing. So this kit makes it so that it's not literally solid mounted, but very close. The ND, for example, is solidly bolted with no give whatsoever to the subframe. So this gets you closer there. So it includes the Delrin spacers or bushings, a steel sleeve in there, and then also a piece for the other end of the steering rack that is multi-piece. So you can actually install it without disassembling everything. So the question is, are those coming soon for the NA? So for the NA, we have the poly bushings right now, and we have had those for a long time. The poly's not quite as stiff as the Delrin, but the shape of the bushing makes it more complicated and more expensive to make it out of Delrin, so it's not really quite as plausible of a thing. So, and the bushing is the bushing is fairly thin to start off with, so poly is a great option for that. This is a short version. Okay, so we're gonna tag onto Keith's seminar with our RGR splitter kit. So this is for the NAs and the NBs, and we have it right here as well installed. So you have the upright kit here. This bolts to the chassis. You can see there is a wild amount of adjustability in here in all these holes, and you can also slide it fore and aft. That makes it so that it works really well with stock-bodied cars, with R-package cars, with, I have some kind of goofy body kit on it cars, and all that type of thing. And then the aluminum splitter bolts to this bracket right here. So the kit comes as this, plus a bunch of hardware, including rods, and a cardboard template. So the cardboard template is CNC cut, so you can cut your own splitter out of whatever material you want. So you can kind of have that on that, save a little bit of money, do whatever you want. Or you can buy the aluminum splitter that is perfectly cut, nicely contoured on the backside, all that fun stuff for as an additional thing if you want to do just the easy button. So one of the nice things about this is that it works with stock-bodied cars. You don't have to do anything goofy to the body of the car in order to get it to fit. It's also extremely easy to install. So the first time you're going to kind of figure out what settings you want, you're going to move things back and forth, you're going to get it all set up, and then you're done. So for future installs, you have the rods, you have the bolts that go in from the sides here, and that's it. So for a dual duty car, it's really easy to put this on for a track day, and then take it back off for the street where you don't want to, slice pedestrians' ankles open and such. And again, as Keith talked about, we also have the spats here that are going to cover the front of the tire and clean that up aerodynamically a bit as well. So that's all this stuff is for the NB and the NA. Same base kit, different splitters, different spats. So. Okay, so we have new shiny wheels. Yeah, so these are our kogeki wheels, which we've been selling for a while, and these are in the deep silver color that we're calling it. We have been selling some sizes in the deep silver previously. Now we're selling more. So we've got the 15x7s for the NAs and the NBs, and the 17x8s for both NCs and NDs, in addition to the 17x9 for the ND and the 15x8 for the NA, NB, I think. I'm trying to kind of pulling that out of the memory banks there, so hopefully that's right. So next, with continuing the spinny things idea, we have our brake kits. So we've been selling Willwood brake kits for a very long time. They work very well, very pleased with them. And we sell a brake kit for the rear that puts 4-piston calipers on the rear, which is awesome and really makes the pedal feel very good, gets rid of the weight of the rear caliper, and gets rid of the flex of the rear caliper, so it stiffens up the braking system as a whole. So really, really good for feel. The parking brake is not spectacular. I won't argue with it. It's basically a V-brake kind of setup here. So it's legal for classes, but it's not tremendously functional. So we now have a parking brake version. So there's a separate caliper on here for the NA and the NB that works with the stock caliper, the stock cables. Simple bolt-on, a little bit of dust shield trimming and all that business, but allows you to have a real, honest-to-God parking brake that will hold the car, and also the awesome 4-piston rear setup.
Why does that caliper work better than the one that's for stopping?
Okay, so the question is, why does this one work better than the caliper for stopping the car as a parking brake?
Why does it work better than the other caliper?
So a hydraulic caliper will ultimately bleed pressure. So that doesn't matter when you're on and off the brake pedal, because it's a short enough thing, you can compensate because you're right there, it doesn't matter, it's totally fine. But if you leave the car parked on a hill for a week, your hydraulic setup is going to lose pressure. And after a day or 10 or whatever, your car's going to be bye-bye. It's at the bottom of the hill. With a mechanical brake, that's not going to happen. It's just solid in there. Does that answer your question?
Yes, but I've noticed that on my car with a little ND, that you can pull that brake as hard as you want. It just doesn't have enough braking force to hold the car on a significant hill.
Yeah.
So does that one work better than that?
Absolutely. Yeah,
Why does it work better?
mechanical advantage. So this one has physics and mechanical advantage and stuff in there. So the clamping pressure is dramatically higher. Now the clamping pressure is not dramatically higher than the 4-piston caliper when you are using the 4-piston caliper with your foot. But the mechanical advantage with the parking brake setup, that's again just kind of the V-brake, is very little. So you're really not getting much clamping force with the parking brake setup on the 4-piston caliper, which is why this parking brake caliper actually does work. So the bad news I have for you on that one is that we do not currently have an ND version of this. So yeah, this is only for NAs and NBs at this point. We will see what the future holds. Speaking of hydraulic pressure and such, so this, we have the same kind of setup, but for the drift crowd. Matt is the instigator on this one with his gigantic yellow thing, or blue thing out there. But this is a drift brake setup. So the red caliper is for your hand brake to initiate a drift. The gray caliper, sorry Travis, let me hold that up so that you guys can actually see things. The gray caliper is your foot brake, so for slowing the car down that way. So same kind of idea. This one does not come with any of the hydraulic stuff because there's a lot of different ways to skin that particular cat, so we don't want to paint anybody into a corner. Okay, so more brake parts. Yes?
What's the weight penalty on the mechanical parking brake?
So what is the weight penalty on the mechanical parking brake? There is a very slight penalty over stock. The Wilwood calipers are much lighter, but you have two calipers now. So I want to say it's quarter pound, half pound, something like that. It's not a lot, but there is a slight penalty to it. With this one, for what it's worth, you're doubling the caliper count, and it's like 8 times as many pistons for the same weight. So you're not adding any weight with this setup. Also, weight is probably not your primary concern with this setup, so. Yeah, it does work quite well. Okay, so more brake things. So this is another product from our U-Design program. So quick reminder on our U-Design program, that is if you design a product that you use on your Miata, you think maybe other people will like it, you can reach out to us. We'll basically validate the design, make sure that it's something that we are willing to sell and it's good enough and all that kind of stuff. We're not going to accept everything, apologies. But if it's a good one, then we can print it on our very nice Markforged printers out of our carbon fiber nylon material and pay you a royalty, and we take care of everything else. So that gives the Miata community access to a bunch of high quality, intelligently designed parts that otherwise just wouldn't be possible, while also earning you a little bit of extra cash. So it works out really well. So this piece in particular is a brake duct inlet kit for the NB2. So for the NB2 specifically, you remove the brake duct, or excuse me, you remove the fog lights and put these in its place and then add backing plates to it and hose, and you've got a brake duct kit. So that is these fog lights right here. Take these guys out, put that in, add a couple of extra parts, and it's good to go. And it is a very complete kit as far as the inlet is concerned, because when you remove your fog lights, you're going to have an exposed wiring harness or plug. So it comes with a tiny little, or a pair of tiny little caps for those plugs. So it's the details that count. Here is another U-Design part. So Miatas are great at lots of things. Holding cups and cans is not really very high on that list. So the NAs have a cup holder that's okay, but it's kind of in the wrong place, and it doesn't really work that well, and so on and so forth. So this one solves that problem. So this actually slips inside of the center console. It's just a geometrical fit, basically. And it'll hold your can of soda, it'll hold your fast food drink cup, whatever. It's sized and contoured on the inside to do all of those things. Pretty cheap, super easy install, not permanent install, so on and so forth. And again, another U-Design product here.
Brandon, not to interrupt, but you may want to tell people that they can see the parking brake and the cup holder on your car.
Yep.
And the battery that you're about to talk about in my car, et cetera, and the gold stuff is on bottom. If
Yep.
anyone wants to see it installed.
So yeah, there's a lot of these parts are installed on our cars here, and I have failed to note a lot of that. So the reroute brackets are on a number of things, at least my car, the white Turbo NA out there. Gold foil on the blue Turbo NA, drift kit on the gigantic blue thing out there, as noted. Parking brake kit is on the white NA. I think that's it. This guy is also on the white NA, so I will try to keep that in mind as I go down the line. Okay, so we've got a handful of new parts from our friends over at MX-5 Things. So we have a phone holder for the ND. So this just pops right into the cup holder spot. It has the right shape piece on the end there. And then this guy is spring-loaded, so as you push your phone down, the arms come in to grip your phone. So pretty easy. We also have the same thing, but with a RAM mount ball. So lap timers, different style phone mounts, the world is your oyster. There's all sorts of different options, but this allows you to do all that stuff, and again, same thing, pops into that cup holder spot for you. So it keeps it out of your way, but easily accessible and visible as well. For those power retractable hardtop NC people, we have this box right here. So this makes the power hardtop much more flexible. It gives you one touch open and close. You can make it so that it automatically opens when you release the latch. It takes away, well, yeah, so on the NC, any speed means you can't open the top. This means that you can open the top up to 30 miles an hour. It also takes away the reverse override, and I think that's it. But anyway, a bunch of stuff. It is also programmable, so it comes with a default program in there to start off with, and then you can change it to whatever you want. If you say, well, 30 is too fast, but I want to do 15 miles an hour, cool. You just do some stuff in the software, and there you go. Again, for the NC crowd, this is for the HomeLink mirror. If your mirror has power, this is just a jumper harness, and then it has a USB plug on there. So if you're trying to power a dash cam, a radar detector, whatever, you can get power very easily right there. We also have a version that's just a splice in. So it just has flying leads if you have something else that needs power, switch power, and ground. There you go. You can do it that way. For the safety end of things, for the, hey, I have a tiny car, please do not drive over me, this is a flasher for the third brake light. So there are two different, well, there are a bunch of different versions, but they're kind of two parent versions, and then it's a generational thing. So there's a version that flashes every time you get on the brake pedal, but it has a timeout for 10 seconds. So if you get on the brake pedal, and then you get off the brake pedal to creep forward 3 feet in traffic, and then you get back on, it's not going to flash and irritate the person behind you again until you've been off the brake pedal for 10 seconds, and then it'll start over again. So it'll do its little flashing routine there. This one in particular actually has an accelerometer in there. So your brake light is completely normal until you're panic braking and your brake light says, hey, no, for real, I'm slowing down really quickly, pay attention. This will flash at that point. So it's 0.6 G that's required to activate this, and that will flash it. So it is a plug-in for the RF and the PRHT. There's another version that's a plug-in for the ND soft top, and then there's a splice-in for everything else, basically. And again, all of those generational versions are available in the G1 or the normal one, if you will. Okay, more for the NC crowd. So this is the smart flasher. So this is for the NC again. So this makes it so that when you hit the turn signal once, it will flash for 3 times. It's programmable, but it'll flash 3 times automatically like a new car, like an ND. It also has a function in there where it turns the parking lights on for 30 seconds when you lock and unlock the car. So kind of courtesy light type stuff. And it's all programmable as well. So, and this is fully LED compatible. So you don't have to worry about resistors for your turn signals or anything like that. You just plug it in and you're good to go, no hyperflash. Yes?
What do you need to program the 2 devices you described as programmable?
So for this one, that's why it has this extra wire on there. You feed it 12 volts. And I can't remember the exact sequence, but basically you do it in a specific sequence and you change between a number of different preset things. The other program, okay. Yes, this is the other programmable thing. USB into your computer, download very simple software, check boxes on a computer. Okay, more electronic-y things. Batteries. I should not be able to do this with a battery. Anyone who has picked up a battery should know that this is not, promise I am not that strong. That is not the significant part of the equation here. So this is an anti-gravity battery. We have been selling these for a little while for the NCs and the NDs, and this one is for the NA and the NB. So this battery drops 17 pounds off the stock battery for an NA and NB. The NC-ND version is 20 pounds, and then we also have a version with a very lightweight small battery that is in the 2019 RF out there that drops 22 pounds. So lithium, I'll try to keep this really brief because there's a lot of details here. Lithium iron phosphate batteries are extremely light. They're extremely powerful. They can be, depending on the size of the battery. They're very intelligent. It has a battery management system on board, so it doesn't let you overcharge or undercharge and a bunch of different stuff. It basically keeps the battery healthy. These batteries last a very long time, 10 years at least. And one of the neatest things is that there's one version of the battery that we sell that doesn't have this, but every other version of the battery on all of the stock drop-in sizes have a restart functionality. So what that means is when the voltage, you leave the headlights on, and the voltage drops enough that you're not going to be able to restart your car, well, the battery knows that, and it will disconnect internally. So you come back to your car, and your car is completely dead. There is absolutely nothing happening because the battery has disconnected. So you either push the button on the top of the battery itself, or you push one of the key fobs, which is more relevant for something that has the battery buried more than in a Miata, but hey, you get them anyway, so you can use them. And the battery reconnects. You start the car, no problem, and you remember not to leave the lights on next time. So super easy. Yes?
Estimated life expectancy on that battery?
At least 10 years. So situations vary, whatever, but it has a very long warranty. I don't want to quote it because I can't remember, but for a battery, it's a very long warranty. And it should last about 10 years. And at that 10 years, it'll probably still be fine. It just has a decreased capacity to it. So it'll probably still work fine for you, but it'll die or disconnect earlier when you've left the lights on, that type of thing. So these aren't cheap. I'm not going to try to argue that point. But again, if you look at it over the lifespan versus a lead acid, the price becomes far more reasonable. I would want to double check that. Not me. Okay, so we have some new tools as well. We've got more 3D printed tools. So this is a transmission output seal installer for the NA and the NB. So pretty simple piece, but works extremely well. Yeah, super basic, but does an easy job.
Will it also work as a plug?
No, but we do sell a plug. So we do sell a plug for the output of the transmission that works for all of the Miatas because it has a few different sizes on it. So. Yeah, they're very good. Even if they've been drained, they're very good at peeing on people. It's kind of annoying. Let's see. So we'll keep on the vaguely transmission-related idea. So we have a flywheel locking tool. So there's one version for the NA and the NB. There's another version for the NC and the ND. Comes with a couple spacers to get all your dimensions right. But basically, this piece will you use an existing bolt hole in the block, and it will cant over to lock the flywheel in one direction, to loosen it, and then you can cant it over a little bit more, and now it's clear of the flywheel, and you can spin it wherever you need to, and then in the other direction, and now it's going to hold it in place while you tighten it down. Super easy, very straightforward, works extremely well, available for all Miatas. Okay, and we have lug nut sockets. Not a fancy thing, right? Well, don't know that I would argue with you too hard on that, but these are very low profile, so they fit within wheels with deep and narrow sockets very well, and they have a plastic sleeve on the outside to keep you from scratching up your wheels. So we've got these guys in 19 millimeter and 21 millimeter. So, and it's a 1/2-inch drive. So good addition to basically any toolbox. Okay, more NC things. So this is the, again, from our friends at DEI. This is a transmission tunnel heat shield kit for the NC. So it goes on the outside of the transmission tunnel to keep heat from getting to the sheet metal and to the cabin to start off with. A bunch of CNC cut pieces. These pie cuts allow you, I don't know if I can do that with one hand, to kind of get a little bit of a curve to it so it matches the contours in there. Bunch of pieces, as you can see, the adhesive is rated at something ridiculous like 300 degrees, and that's the lowest temp piece on this. It's got the insulation there, and then it's got the dimpled reflective piece on the outside there. Yes?
Do you have a complete sheet so I can customize it?
So do we have a complete sheet so that you can customize it? We do not, but DEI absolutely does. They sell all sorts of different products for that. So this one also comes with tape to seal the seams. So for the NCs, it comes with something similar to this to start off with. It's not going to be as nice. It's not as high quality, but it is a thing, that's similar. It's custom formed, and by this time, it's probably disintegrating and falling apart in your car. So they last a while. NCs aren't brand new anymore, but they do have a tendency to fall apart. The foil will peel off. The foam backing will kind of break into pieces. So if yours is intact, this is better, but maybe it's not worth the effort. If yours is falling apart, which it probably is, then this would be a great upgrade. Definitely easier to do if you've got the transmission out of the car, but you can probably manage with the transmission in the car as well. So, and we have our shiny new catalog. So these are free with any order over $40. They're also here if you're here, so please grab one. So it has all the shiny new stuff, a lot of stuff that I'm going to talk about in a minute that doesn't actually exist yet, but we are working on it. So I think Travis did a fantastic job on this. Brief plug to Travis there, good job. Um, so yeah, that's an awesome catalog. Pick one up. Good job, Travis. Okay, we have NC motor mounts. So these are from our friends over at IL Motorsports. They are a higher durometer rubber, so it's a little bit stiffer. So you are going to get a little bit of increased NVH with this, but it's going to hold the engine and therefore the entire drivetrain in place better. So there's going to be less rocking around, less likely to miss a shift and that kind of thing. So we've been selling these for the NAs and the NBs for a very long time. This is just the NC version, basically. So, okay, let me check my notes and make sure. I don't think I missed anything. Yeah, it looks good. All right. So, okay, we have flywheels and clutches for the NDs now. So these guys hold 340 pound-feet, which is perhaps more than you should put through a stock ND transmission, but this will hold the power just fine. Pretty straightforward, bolt-in, easy peasy. We also have lightweight flywheels. So the ND1, there's one version for the ND1 and one version for the ND2. The ND1 is a lightweight flywheel. It's straightforward, it's great, it's a nice addition. It gives you a little bit, better engine braking, better rev matching, better ability to throttle steer, all that fun stuff. So it's a nice upgrade for a performance car, for a track car. You might have a little bit of closed throttle in gear rattle noise, usually pretty minor, oftentimes non-existent at all, but something to be aware of. But what I'm really excited about is the one for the ND2. So the ND2 has a dual mass flywheel, which is, you can come up here and poke around with it afterwards, but basically it has a big rubber damper in the middle of the system. So that makes the car a little bit friendlier to drive, but Miatas are all about connection, being directly connected to the car, having immediate reaction, and this kind of sort of puts a rubber band into the drivetrain, if you will. This piece takes that rubber band out of the drivetrain. So if a normal lightweight flywheel is a 10% improvement in performance, which is a number that I have just pulled out of thin air and is not actually attached to anything scientific, then this is a 30% improvement. It makes a really big difference in just how much of a sports car the car feels like, because you're ditching that dual mass. And quite frankly, I never had a problem with the dual mass. I was fine with it until we put that flywheel in and I said, oh my goodness, that is way better. So nice upgrade there. So the flywheels do work with stock clutches. If you have an ND2, you will want to use an ND1 stock flywheel if you opt not to use, clutch, if you opt not to use our clutch. And I can go into details there if you've got questions, but the short version is just get our entire package. It's going to be the easiest option. Comes with tools and bearings and such, as always. Okay, so another couple of items we have here are from Banks. Banks does diesel stuff, right? Banks doesn't do sports car stuff. What are we doing with Banks stuff? Well, Banks does do some sports car stuff, particularly electronic stuff, and they are extremely good at what they do, and extremely intelligent and extremely thoroughly engineered parts. So this is the iDash. So this iDash, let's see how many of these specs I remember off the top of my head. So it plugs straight into the OBD2 system. It can pull anywhere from 35 to 55 different parameters out of your OBD2 system. There is a super gauge version, which is effectively just the gauge. There's a data monster version, which which comes with a micro SD card and does data logging. Both versions will record min-max values on up to 20 parameters that can record up to 100 parameters in total. You can show between 2 and 8 parameters per screen, and you can have 5 screens. You can set warnings. So tell me, flash big red obvious if the temperature is over X or my oil pressure is under Y or whatever. I think that's it. Oh, no, the 100 parameters thing. That doesn't make sense if we can only log 55, up to 55 parameters off of OBD2, right? Well, there's a ton of expansion stuff that you can do for it. You want thermocouples, you want oil pressure, you want ambient temperature, you want a full weather station that gives you humidity and pressure and temperature and whatever. Awesome, they've got it all. So extremely capable. It's a 2 1/16 gauge, fits into all, it's standard gauge size in our world anyway, fits into any of the gauge pods. This is an NC and ND only thing. It doesn't make sense to use on an NB, even if you have OBD2 is the really short version. It doesn't, that OBD2 is way too basic to actually pull anything off of for this. And we do have a suction cup gauge mount for the NCs and the NDs. Yes?
I'm just wondering, on the MDs, how intrusive is that in the footwell? I can see that being a potential.
Sure, so the question is how intrusive is it in the footwell? Not very. So it's a right angle plug. So it's pretty small. Is it going to stick down? Yes. Is it going to stick down enough to matter? Probably not. If you have giant feet and you're grazing the dash right now to start off with, yeah, this will make it a little worse. Outside of that, no, I don't think you'll notice it. So, yes?
I ran that in my ND. It was fantastic, and I never kicked it.
Yeah.
I was thinking it came straight down, right angle.
Yeah. We do also have a splitter. So if you have an insurance monitor or whatever, some other OBD2 thing, you can run both of them. There are limitations to that. I won't get into the gory details, but if you have something super basic and the OBD2 splitter should work just fine. So, and let me check. Yeah, so with the data monster, the only other thing that I missed there, the data monster logs. It logs to the micro SD card. It logs to a CSV file, so you can use their viewing software to look at everything in a graphical format, or you can drop it into Excel or whatever your favorite spreadsheet program is and look at everything that way. So along with the banks, we have the pedal monster. So I don't know if you guys have heard about pedal controllers. Some companies, Toyota, likes to think that they can control the throttle much better than we can. And for those of us who can drive, it is infuriating. The Miata is not one of those things, frankly. From seat of the pants, even if it's not literally true, seat of the pants, it really feels like a one-to-one relationship. So I wouldn't get this to solve a problem, if you will. And this isn't going to make your car any faster. It's not going to make your throttle open any farther than it already does. That said, at part throttle, it does open the throttle more, so it really makes the car feel like it has a bigger engine. Quite frankly, I was extremely ready to dismiss this as a silly thing that was totally pointless and is not necessary on a Miata, and I was very surprised at how much I did like it. It just makes the car 100% psychological. I will not argue that. But it makes the car feel faster, quicker, like it has a bigger engine. It's also very programmable. So you can plug it into the iDash directly, because this is also an OBD2. So you can't do both things into the OBD2, but you can do one thing into the OBD2 and plug this thing into the other thing, kind of deal. So they can daisy chain like that. So you can program it with the iDash, or you can program it with an app on your phone. So it works very well either way. Honestly, the app on the phone, which you can use regardless of whether you have an iDash, is actually a little bit faster, cleaner, easier, but it works really well each time, and you're probably going to install it, play with it for the first week, find a setting you like, and leave it. So, and straight plug-in. So it is, again, OBD2. It also, the one-handed thing is difficult. It has just plug in at the throttle pedal. Why does it have OBD2 if it plugs in at the throttle pedal? Because the throttle pedal only has 5 volts, and you don't want to add extra load to that circuit. And when it plugs into OBD2, it knows you're in reverse and says, I don't think we need a throttle boost in reverse. I'm not going to do anything. I'm only going to do it when you're in forward gears. So there's a lot of other really intelligent control in this. So yeah, it's psychological, 100%. But it's a really well-built psychological thing, if you will. Okay, so all of these products are available on our website now. We have inventory of most of the things, but not necessarily all of the things. Pretty close, though, I think. And now we're going to try something new. So we're usually very apprehensive to kind of give too much of a peek behind the curtain, if you will, because things can take a lot longer to show up, unexpected problems happen in production of new products, so on and so forth. So we're going to give you a little bit of a peek behind the curtain here. None of these are in stock now. I cannot give you an ETA on them, but they are finalized, they are in production, and we should have them in the coming months. And yes, that is generic and vague, and that is on purpose. So bear with us. That said, we have some exciting stuff. So we have our new shock tower brace. So a lot of people were very disappointed when including myself, when the shock tower brace went away. So we have developed this one. It is stainless steel. The towers are offset slightly to allow for really good fitment on both the engine and the hood, because that's a struggle to get both of them, and on the NA and the NB. Excuse me. So we've addressed that. And it will also, we haven't tried every possible engine swap. I'm not going to work with a K-swap. Sorry, guys. That's a tall engine. But it works with V8s and all sorts of other stuff. So, and super simple bolt-on. And a lot of shock tower braces are flimsy and or have pivot points that make it so that they do nothing, which is why they're towel racks on our walls instead of on our cars. This is bolted solidly together. There are no pivot points. It's very solid, stiff structure that is actually going to make a difference to the chassis stiffness, the steering response of the car, that kind of thing. Is a shock tower brace necessary on a Miata? I really like them. I would say you should do it. I will also say that it is nowhere near as important on a Miata as it is on a strut-based car where there's a ton of load going through the top of the strut at the strut tower there because of the design of the suspension. And I'm not going to get into the gory details there, but the short version is Miatas don't carry as much load through their shock tops, shock towers, as a strut-type car. That said, this is still a really, really nice upgrade. It's also super simple to install. So that one's pretty awesome. It is also on the blue NA out there, if you want to see one installed. Captain Bob. Excuse me. Okay, so if you have been around for a while, you may know what the Randall intake is. The Randall intake was a tube that took air from the cowl. So at the base of the windshield, which is cold, it's completely outside of the engine bay, and it's also, depending on your speed, high pressure air. So you get a legitimate 5 horsepower at the wheels. The filter on a stick setup, they sound fast. Usually they suck in hot air and your car is actually slower, particularly with the hood closed, and most of us drive around with the hood closed on our cars. So the Randall was awesome, pretty pricey, a little bit of quality control issues, and then the guy building it retired. Awesome, good for him. So it kind of disappeared for a while, but we have brought it back. So it is now made out of custom formed silicone. This means that the air is well insulated. It means that it's very durable. I mean, you can just do whatever you want to, and it's going to spring right back into the same shape. It's extremely easy to install, perfect fit, all that fun stuff. So we've got it for the NA right here. And then we also have it for the NB. This new version, 100% compatible with cruise control and most shock tower braces. I'm not going to say all just in case, but it'll certainly work with this one. We did make sure of that. And it should work with the stock ones as well. So, yes. Oh goodness. Oh boy. Okay, sorry. I have talked for a long time. Okay, comes with a firewall plate. I'm going to go a little faster. Comes with a firewall plate to make install easier. You've got to drill holes in the firewall. We also have this race dash here. So this is super cool and also a Keith project. So I am going to refer to my notes a little more on this one. The short version is that it installs behind the gauges. You can get one for the tach and or the speedometer. It has LEDs. It's going to be pre-programmed and also extremely programmable for those of you who like to DIY stuff. There's a lot of external sensors that you can add for all sorts of fun stuff. So we've got it going through a little demo here. Let's see if I can remember what everything is. So that is a warning light. I know. So this is your shift, like an LED tach with a trace. That's a shift light. That is your warm-up. So it says your RPM is, your red line is that. This is a, hey, you're getting really hot, and that's a, hey, you are really hot, coolant temp-wise. And this is just another example of the LED tack kind of thing. It'll light up the needle. This is kind of a temp thing as well. And then a shift light. And also refer to Keith for anything that I missed there or got wrong. Thanks, Keith. Let me see. Yeah, that's pretty close. So yeah, it's going to be available as a complete kit. It will also be available DIY kind of stuff if you want to do that. It is pre-programmed and also extremely programmable, and all the code is going to be open source. So if you are inclined to play with it, you absolutely can. And it is going to be like a quarter to 50% of the price of a race dash. So dramatically less expensive, and you get the cool aesthetics. And you can go to Rev Limiter to get whatever kind of gauge face that you want that has the translucent bit that you need to make the LEDs visible through that, because it will not work with a stock gauge face. So we also have a new turbo manifold. Bum, bum, bum. So we have worked with an engineer, CFD guys, to get this done. It is 25 to 35% lighter than the old version, and it is 24% better in terms of flow. So this one is still a little ways out. The upcoming turbo kits will not have this quite yet, but we are working on this. You may have seen this on a few cars out there. Well, I can't even remember. The white NA has one, I can tell you that much. Okay, and then we also have our power steering delete kit. So a lot of people do want air conditioning and don't want power steering, and the bracket is basically non-existent. They're no longer available. They're very hard to find. If you can find them, they're priced like gold. This one, super simple install, bolts in place of the sock tensioner. I can't even remember, but it uses pre-existing bolt holes on the car. It's an automatic tensioner as well, so you don't have to futz around with anything. You just put a belt on, let it go, and you're good to go. And we have a new and exciting thing that I'm going to be talking about here shortly that give you guys a little bit of a sneak peek there. Okay, that's enough. We're gonna talk about that one in our next seminar. That's in 5 minutes because I've run long. So we may postpone that slightly for a bathroom break. All right. So now that I've rambled on for a very long time, are there any questions? You guys are more than welcome to come up here and look at everything, but I'm not going to give you a ton of time since I've run so far over. So thank you. Come up, check this out, and be sure to be here for the next seminar.